I didn't even know we had a Jane Doe homicide until somebody asked me about it, and then I began to ask questions myself about it. No one ever thought that this case was local. Everybody believed that this was somebody from some other state, some other region.
This woman, who is now unidentified for over 30 years, doesn't have a name, no family. We know nothing about her.
It's taken over 3 decades for her to at least have a way to go forward. No matter what person's choices are, they don't deserve to be murdered.
She did that hard work, and she brought her mom home.
It was a very, very tough crime scene for anybody in 1994 to work. October 24th, 1994, a gentleman, property owner, discovered some skeletal remains on his property next to the railroad tracks on Highway 64 between Marlton and Plummerville. Those remains were human remains. The body was not in good shape. It was decomposed, and so the only thing that was there at the scene was just the body and the clothing that was on. I mean, there was just not a lot to go on. Of course, you know, they done the crime scene itself and took photos and took a video of the crime scene. Just because there was so little there and so unknown how long the body had been there. The crime lab did keep vertebrae from the skeletal remains, as they knew years later that technology would catch up and that it might be beneficial. There was other items that was returned to us at the sheriff's office that we kept in evidence that sit there for years and years. Nobody had looked at the actual evidence itself. When we got to looking into the case, we realized that there might be some evidence there that we could resubmit to the crime lab and try to get a DNA profile. I saw a case out of Faulkner County that they had used Parabon labs to identify in a homicide case, and it just caught my attention, and I thought, man, this is what we need to do. When we got to that point and we got no hits, we had to start over. And the first thing I thought is I have to have help. And so that's where I enlisted the state police to be involved.
It's just having a fresh set of eyes to help, maybe with a different point of view. Somebody that had not been involved in it the whole time maybe would see something different that somebody else wouldn't. I would call the crime lab periodically and say, can you run the DNA and CODIS again? I don't know what it would help, but it didn't hurt. They would get back to me with a no hit, which is frustrating, but that's kind of the outcome that you would assume would happen. And then with Parabon, they said, well, she could have the skin color, this eye color. And then we got the opportunity to work with Othram Labs, and they took the DNA that was on file and they ran it through their system, and they came up with reports. So I would try to contact the people via phone that lived out of state and explain to them who I was and explain to them what I was wanting. And I never got calls back because people just assume that you're a scam and that it's just nonsense. I believe over 20 people that lived in this area within central Arkansas that I was able to get a hold of, and we did drive out and we had an in-person interview. Quite a few of them we swabbed, and that went on for 2 years maybe. It just came to a stop. There was nothing. So again, frustrating that this woman, who is now unidentified for over 30 years, doesn't have a name, no family. We know nothing about her. So then we had somebody contact the state police that wanted to help us on a cold case.
My name is Stephanie Wyatt, and I'm a forensic investigative genetic genealogist. I reached out and offered to assist with any potential unidentified human remains case or unsolved cold case using the DNA that had already been tested. DNA for Conway County Jane Doe was tested by Parabon Nanolabs. A genetic genealogist worked on the case and identified a family of interest, but it was quite distant. The common ancestor, as we would refer to them, was born in 1790. DNA testing is not a magic wand. Oftentimes detectives believe that sending in a DNA sample will poof, deliver a name. And what we found is that oftentimes this is more of a game of basketball, where you're tossing the ball back and forth down the court. We say, hey, we found this lead on a family. Now we're going to toss you the ball and say, we need FTDNA. And then they toss the ball back and say, here's the FTDNA, and we talk to these family members and no one knows her. Okay, crossing those off the list and moving on to a different branch of that one common ancestor's line of descendancy. So when I came on board in early 2026, I requested to see any results that may have been there or potentially to upload still. Within 24 hours, I had identified Jamie Ann Moore as a potential person of interest for Conway County Jane Doe.
We found that she had a daughter that lived very close to where my main office was. So we drove down to her house and we had an interview with her. We collected a DNA swab from her as well, a known sample. In about a month, it came back that I believe it was a 99.7% chance that Tasha, that was her mother, Jamie Ann Moore.
I was marching in the fair parade for the first time, and she had called a few days before. She was supposed to meet us there at the end of the route. We were going to go eat, maybe go home and talk and everything, and she didn't show up. And we waited, and she didn't show up. So to find out after all this time that, like, she didn't show up because she was either dead or being killed at that time, like, it's just mind-blowing.
Just to go and find out that she's from Conway, Arkansas, and you know, you're talking 15 minutes from where she was found.
Some of it's, you know, well, why didn't the family report her missing? Because we didn't realize she was missing. She, I'll admit, was a pretty big drug user. She was never in a good place. She had a lot of, you know, violent relationships. Even though she wasn't the best mom, it's like she was still my mom. And I loved her whether she was messed up or not.
It's a bittersweet feeling when you're doing this level of work. There's a moment of success, of glee, when you know that you finally found that missing piece. But it's very short-lived because all of the rest of the people who are listed as surviving are also surviving with this information, with this loss.
It's crazy how, you know, it finally all come together.
It is.
We're glad that we have finally got a name. We are glad that there's family out there that they want closure, and we were able to give them that. But now, you know, this is still a homicide case.
If nothing else, I deserve an answer. You know, like, I mean, I have now been alive well over a decade more than she was. She didn't deserve to have her family taken from her, and her family didn't deserve to have her taken. You haven't heard from someone in a long time, or you see random things but it doesn't sound quite right. Put that line out and figure out if you can find something. No matter what person's choices are, they don't deserve to be murdered.
Uploading your DNA to GEDmatch, DNAjustice.com, and FamilyTreeDNA.com are ways that you can make a difference in cold cases. You may not realize, much like the people in this case, don't realize that they played a direct role in the identification of Jamie Ann Moore.
We're reaching out to people that lived around her. That's what we started our tip line for, so that we could get information. And I believe that we are making strides.
She was Jane Doe for 31 years. Now she has a name. And I know it's not complete closure for the family because she was still taken away too soon.
We hope that one day soon that we'll have all those pieces together, and it'll lead us to who was responsible for her murder.
Whoever knows something needs to let it go. It's a weight, I'm sure, on whoever's soul knows anything about that. And it's time to lay that weight down and just tell somebody.